4 super smart ways to deal with anger. You ever have one of those days where everything's going fine until someone cuts you off in traffic and suddenly you're gripping the steering wheel like it's the only thing keeping you from losing it? I had a moment like that not too long ago, sitting in my car, heart pounding, ready to honk the horn until the world knew I was mad. It wasn't just about the guy who swerved in front of me. It was the whole day. The meeting that went south, the dishes piling up at home, the way I snapped at my kid for no good reason. I was angry, and it felt like that anger was driving me, not the other way around. You know that feeling, don't you? When you're so mad you can't think straight, and later you're kicking yourself for how you handled it. That day in the car, I didn't honk. I didn't yell. Instead, I did something I'd never done before, and it changed everything. But let me back up and tell you how I got there. Because if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered, how do you deal with anger without letting it wreck your day or your life? I'm no stranger to getting mad. Growing up, I watched my dad lose his temper over the smallest things. A flat tire, a late bill, you name it. He'd yell, slam doors, and then act like nothing happened. I swore I'd be different, but by my 30s, I started seeing bits of him in me. I'd get frustrated at work when a coworker dropped the ball, or I'd come home after a long day and take it out on my wife over something dumb, like forgetting to pick up milk. It wasn't like I was throwing tantrums, but I could feel it, this tight, hot knot in my chest that made me say things I didn't mean. And the worst part, it didn't just hurt the people around me, it made me feel like I was failing at being the person I wanted to be. One Thursday last fall, things hit a breaking point. I was at the office, already stressed about a deadline, when my boss called me into a meeting to discuss a project I'd been pouring my heart into. Turns out, discuss meant him tearing it apart in front of the team. He didn't raise his voice, but every word felt like a jab. By the time I got back to my desk, I was fuming. I wanted to march back in there and tell him exactly what I thought of his feedback, or maybe just quit on the spot. My hands were shaking as I typed out an email I knew I'd regret sending. I could feel the anger taking over, like a wave I couldn't swim out of. That's when my coworker Sarah popped by my desk. She's one of those people who always seems calm, like she's got life figured out. She took one look at me and said, "You okay? You look like you're about to set this place on fire." I laughed, but it was a tight, bitter laugh. I told her what happened, expecting her to say something like, "Yeah, he's a jerk." Instead, she leaned in and said, "You know, when I get that mad, I give myself 5 seconds. Just 5. Count them out, breathe, and ask, is this worth my energy?" I must have looked skeptical because she smiled and said, "Try it. Worst case, you're still mad, but at least you didn't send that email." I don't know why, but I listened. I closed my eyes, counted to 5, and took a deep breath with each number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It sounds so simple, almost silly, but by the time I opened my eyes, the knot in my chest had loosened just enough for me to think clearly. I didn't send the email. Instead, I stepped away, grabbed a coffee, and came back to the project with a cooler head. Later that day, I even had a calm conversation with my boss, and while he didn't apologize, he listened to my side. That was new. That 5-second trick stuck with me, but it was just the start. Over the next few months, I started paying attention to how I handled anger, and I picked up a few other ways to keep it from running the show. One thing I noticed was how often I'd let anger build because I didn't name it. Like that day in traffic, I wasn't just mad at the guy who cut me off. I was stressed about work, worried about bills, and frustrated with myself for not speaking up in a meeting. So now when I feel that heat rising, I pause and say to myself, okay, I'm angry. Why? Just putting a name to it, like calling out a bully, takes away some of its power. It's like shining a flashlight on a shadow. It's still there, but it's not as scary. Another thing I started doing was giving myself permission to feel the anger, but only for a minute. Sounds weird, right? But instead of shoving it down or letting it explode, I'd set a timer on my phone for 60 seconds and just let it be. I'd clench my fists, breathe hard, maybe even mutter to myself in the car. But when that timer went off, I'd tell myself, all right, time to move on. It's like letting the steam out of a pressure cooker before it blows. I tried it one night when my teenager was testing every ounce of my patience. And instead of yelling, I stepped into the garage, gave myself my minute, and came back ready to talk. It didn't fix the argument, but it kept me from saying something I'd regret. Then there's this question I started asking myself. What's this really about? You'd be surprised how often anger isn't about the thing right in front of you. Like when I'd snap at my wife over the dishes, it wasn't about the dishes. It was about feeling overwhelmed and unappreciated. Once I started digging into the real issue, I could address it instead of just yelling about the mess. One time, instead of starting a fight, I told her, I'm feeling stretched thin and the dishes are just making it worse. She didn't get defensive. She listened and we ended up splitting the chores better. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The last thing I learned, and this one's the hardest, is to let go of being right. I used to think anger was about standing up for myself, like if I didn't push back, I was letting people walk all over me. But sometimes letting go of the need to win is the strongest move you can make. I had a neighbor once who'd complain about my dog barking, and every time I'd get defensive, ready to argue. One day I just listened, nodded, and said, I'll see what I can do. No fight, no drama. Turns out he just wanted to be heard. My dog still barks sometimes, but we're on better terms now. Looking back, that day in the car was a turning point. When that guy cut me off, I could have leaned on the horn, flipped him off, and spent the rest of my drive stewing. Instead, I counted to 5, named my anger, gave it a minute, and asked myself what it was really about. By the time I got home, I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. I walked in, hugged my kid, and actually listened when my wife told me about her day. That's when I realized anger doesn't have to define you. How you handle it does. If this story hit home for you, try one of these tricks next time you feel that heat rising. Maybe it's the 5-second pause or just naming what's got you mad. And if you found this helpful, hit that red subscribe button to catch more stories like this, or share it with a friend who might need it. We're all in this together, figuring out how to be a little wiser, a little kinder, even when life tests us. So here's my parting thought. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be someone who chooses how to respond. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes all the difference.